Welcome to Framework, the podcast that makes the NIST cybersecurity framework practical, engaging, and accessible. Whether you're a cybersecurity professional, business leader, or simply curious about how organizations defend against cyber threats, this series is for you. This podcast is inspired by a comprehensive guide to the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, a best-selling resource written by cybersecurity expert Dr. Jason Edwards and trusted by professionals worldwide. In each episode, we'll leverage a few insights from Jason's extensive book to dive deep into CSF 2.0, unpacking every function, category, and subcategory with real-world applications you can immediately use. If you're enjoying this episode and want to learn more, head over to cyberauthor.me to grab your copy of the book and access additional resources to enhance your cybersecurity journey. You can also visit baremetalcyber.com, where over 2 million people last year explored expert insights, articles, and practical tools across a wide range of cybersecurity topics. GV.RR-03, Allocating Resources for Cybersecurity Success. GV.RR-03 ensures that organizations strategically allocate financial, technical, and human resources to cybersecurity initiatives, ensuring that security programs are well-funded, properly staffed, and effectively managed. This subcategory belongs to the Govern function within the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, version 2.0, emphasizing that cybersecurity success is dependent on organizations dedicating adequate resources to protect digital assets, mitigate cyber risks, and maintain compliance with regulatory requirements. Without structured cybersecurity resource allocation, organizations face underfunded security programs, unprepared security teams, and limited capacity to respond to cyber threats effectively. Strategic cybersecurity resource allocation ensures that organizations have the necessary tools, personnel, and operational capacity to defend against cyber threats, enforce security policies, and sustain long-term cybersecurity resilience. A structured approach to resource allocation allows organizations to prioritize security investments based on risk assessments, ensure that cybersecurity staffing levels meet business needs, and continuously evaluate security tool effectiveness to maximize protection capabilities. Organizations that develop structured cybersecurity budgets, enforce dedicated cybersecurity staffing models, and integrate cybersecurity resource planning into enterprise risk management enhance their ability to detect, respond to, and recover from cybersecurity threats while maintaining operational continuity. Multiple stakeholders play a role in cybersecurity resource allocation. Executive leadership and board members approve cybersecurity budgets, allocate resources for security infrastructure upgrades, and ensure that security investments align with enterprise risk priorities. Chief Information Security Officers and security teams implement cybersecurity strategies, oversee security technology deployments, and manage security personnel to ensure operational efficiency. Compliance and finance teams ensure that cybersecurity resource allocation aligns with regulatory requirements, cost management objectives, and industry best practices, reducing financial risk exposure associated with security noncompliance. Cybersecurity resource allocation is optimized through structured cybersecurity investment planning, continuous evaluation of security workforce needs, and proactive scaling of security capabilities based on emerging threats. This includes developing cybersecurity funding models, ensuring that cybersecurity staffing aligns with threat management requirements, and leveraging automation to enhance security operations while optimizing resource utilization. Organizations that fail to allocate sufficient resources for cybersecurity initiatives risk insufficient security preparedness, weak security monitoring capabilities, and an inability to respond effectively to cyber incidents, leading to regulatory penalties and financial losses. Several key terms define cybersecurity resource allocation and its role in enterprise security governance. Cybersecurity budgeting ensures that organizations dedicate sufficient financial resources to cybersecurity initiatives, balancing cost effectiveness with security resilience. Security workforce planning refers to developing structured security staffing models, ensuring that organizations have enough personnel to manage cybersecurity risks effectively Technology investment optimization involves assessing cybersecurity tools and technologies to ensure that security investments align with business objectives and provide maximum protection value. Risk-based resource prioritization ensures that cybersecurity resource assessments, ensuring that the most critical security risks receive priority funding and staffing. Security automation strategy involves leveraging AI-driven security tools and automated threat detection technologies to optimize security operations while minimizing manual workload on security teams. Challenges in cybersecurity resource allocation often lead to insufficient security investment, poor resource distribution, and inefficient security program management. One common issue is underfunding of cybersecurity initiatives, where organizations fail to allocate sufficient budgets to security programs, leading to outdated security infrastructure and inadequate security monitoring capabilities. Another issue is shortage of skilled cybersecurity personnel, where organizations struggle to recruit, train, and retain qualified security professionals, leaving security teams overwhelmed and unable to manage cyber risks effectively. Some organizations mistakenly believe that cybersecurity is a low-priority expense, without recognizing that underinvestment in cybersecurity leads to higher costs due to security breaches, operational disruptions, and regulatory fines. When organizations effectively allocate resources for cybersecurity success, they improve security preparedness, enhance risk mitigation capabilities, and strengthen their ability to respond to evolving cyber threats. A structured cybersecurity resource allocation model ensures that security investments are prioritized based on risk impact, security personnel receive adequate training and support, and security technologies are continuously optimized to enhance protection capability. Organizations that implement structured cybersecurity budgeting strategies, enforce dedicated security staffing models, and leverage security automation to optimize resource utilization develop a resilient cybersecurity framework that enhances operational security and regulatory compliance. Organizations that fail to allocate sufficient resources for cybersecurity success face significant security, operational, and financial risks. Without proper investment, organizations struggle with outdated security infrastructure, inadequate threat detection capabilities, and understaffed security teams, leading to increased exposure to cyber threats and regulatory non-compliance. A common issue is reactive cybersecurity budgeting, where organizations allocate resources to security initiatives only after a major breach occurs instead of proactively funding security measures to prevent incidents. Another major challenge is misallocation of cybersecurity resources, where organizations invest in security tools without properly training staff to use them effectively, leading to inefficient security operations and wasted budget allocation. By strategically allocating cybersecurity resources, organizations ensure that security programs remain well-funded, security teams are equipped with the necessary tools and skills, and security operations align with evolving threat landscapes. A proactive resource allocation approach enhances security preparedness, optimizes security tool effectiveness, and ensures that cybersecurity investments support business resilience. Organizations that establish structured cybersecurity funding models, prioritize security investments based on risk impact, and integrate security automation to optimize resource utilization strengthen their ability to mitigate cyber risks while maintaining cost-effective security operations. At the partial tier, organizations lack structured cybersecurity resource allocation policies, leading to ad hoc security investments, underfunded security initiatives, and inconsistent security staffing levels. Cybersecurity budgeting and staffing decisions are reactive, with security funding only being addressed when cybersecurity incidents occur. A small business at this level may lack a dedicated cybersecurity budget, leading to reliance on minimal security measures such as basic antivirus software and infrequent security updates, leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed. At the risk-informed tier, organizations begin to recognize the need for structured cybersecurity resource allocation, ensuring that cybersecurity initiatives receive periodic funding and staffing considerations. However, cybersecurity investment efforts remain inconsistent, with security resource planning being handled separately from enterprise-wide financial planning. A mid-sized company at this level may implement an annual cybersecurity budget review process, but fail to integrate security workforce planning, leading to unbalanced resource allocation between technology investments and skilled security personnel hiring. At the repeatable tier, organizations establish fully structured cybersecurity resource allocation frameworks, ensuring that security budgeting, staffing, and technology investments are aligned with enterprise risk management strategies. Cybersecurity governance is formalized, with leadership actively engaged in security funding and resource planning efforts. A financial institution at this stage may allocate cybersecurity budgets based on structured risk assessments, invest in security awareness training programs, and ensure that security automation technologies are leveraged to enhance operational efficiency. At the adaptive tier, organizations employ AI-driven security resource optimization, real-time cybersecurity risk modeling, and predictive security investment strategies to continuously adjust cybersecurity resource allocation based on emerging threats and business priorities. Cybersecurity resource management is fully integrated into enterprise-wide risk governance, ensuring that security investments are dynamically adjusted to support digital transformation efforts and evolving security challenges. A global technology company at this level may use real-time cybersecurity risk dashboards, predictive threat intelligence tools, and AI-driven workforce planning systems to ensure that security budgets and staffing levels remain aligned with business expansion efforts and threat landscape shifts. Cybersecurity resource allocation aligns with multiple controls in the National Institute of Standards and Technology Special Publication 800-53, ensuring that organizations implement structured cybersecurity budgeting and resource planning frameworks. One key control is PM-5 Information Security Resources, which requires organizations to allocate sufficient financial, technical, and personnel resources to cybersecurity programs, ensuring that security initiatives receive ongoing funding and support. A healthcare provider implementing this control may establish a cybersecurity budget that prioritizes security investments for patient data protection, medical device security, and compliance with healthcare security regulations. Another key control is PM-9 Risk Management Strategy, which mandates that organizations align cybersecurity resource allocation with enterprise-wide risk management objectives, ensuring that security investments support business continuity and risk mitigation efforts. A financial services firm implementing this control may use structured cybersecurity risk assessments to prioritize security funding for high-risk systems, ensuring that financial transaction platforms and customer data repositories receive the highest level of security investment. Cybersecurity resource allocation also aligns with CP-11 business continuity planning, which requires organizations to ensure that cybersecurity funding and staffing resources support business continuity and disaster recovery efforts, enabling rapid response to security incidents and minimizing downtime. This control ensures that organizations allocate resources for security redundancy, backup systems, and cybersecurity incident response planning to sustain operational resilience in the face of cyber threats. A global logistics company implementing this control may establish dedicated cybersecurity response teams, pre-allocated emergency cybersecurity funding, and cloud-based data recovery solutions to ensure that security incidents do not disrupt supply chain operations. These controls can be adapted based on organizational size, industry, and cybersecurity maturity. A small business may implement basic cybersecurity funding models, ensuring that security investments focus on essential cybersecurity measures such as firewall protection, endpoint security, and routine security awareness training. A large enterprise may deploy structured cybersecurity investment planning models, automated security workforce optimization platforms, and AI-driven cybersecurity risk forecasting tools to ensure that cybersecurity budgets and staffing levels align dynamically with emerging threats and business expansion strategies. Organizations in highly regulated industries such as financial services, healthcare, and energy may require continuous cybersecurity investment audits, real-time security funding allocation tracking, and executive-led cybersecurity resource management committees to ensure compliance with regulatory mandates and national security requirements. Auditors assess cybersecurity resource allocation by reviewing whether organizations have structured, documented, and continuously evaluated cybersecurity budgeting and resource planning policies. They evaluate whether organizations implement structured cybersecurity funding allocation models, enforce dedicated security staffing plans, and integrate cybersecurity resource management into enterprise-wide financial planning processes. If an organization fails to allocate sufficient cybersecurity resources, auditors may issue findings highlighting gaps in cybersecurity funding, insufficient security staffing levels, and failure to align security investments with risk management objectives. To verify compliance, auditors seek specific types of evidence. Cybersecurity budget reports and security investment plans demonstrate that organizations formally define and allocate structured financial resources to cybersecurity programs. Security workforce planning documentation and staffing allocation records provide insights into whether organizations ensure adequate security personnel resources to manage cybersecurity risks effectively. Cybersecurity technology investment reports and automation strategy documentation show whether organizations proactively invest in cybersecurity tools and optimize resource utilization to enhance security resilience. A compliance success scenario could involve a multinational financial institution that undergoes an audit and provides evidence that cybersecurity resource allocation policies are fully enforced, ensuring that security initiatives receive structured funding, security teams are properly staffed, and cybersecurity automation tools are leveraged to optimize security operations. Auditors confirm that cyber risks are proactively managed, security investments are aligned with risk assessment results, and cybersecurity resource management supports long-term business resilience. In contrast, an organization that fails to allocate sufficient cybersecurity resources, neglects security workforce planning, or lacks structured cybersecurity funding policies may receive audit findings for poor cybersecurity investment planning, inadequate security staffing, and failure to sustain cybersecurity resilience in an evolving threat landscape. Organizations face multiple barriers in ensuring cybersecurity resource allocation supports security success. One major challenge is lack of executive buy-in for cybersecurity funding, where leadership teams fail to prioritize cybersecurity investment, leading to insufficient security budgets and delayed security infrastructure upgrades. Another challenge is cybersecurity workforce shortages, where organizations struggle to recruit, train, and retain skilled cybersecurity professionals, leading to overworked security teams and reduced incident response effectiveness. A final challenge is inefficient security technology investment, where organizations invest in security tools without aligning them with actual risk mitigation needs, leading to underutilized security technologies and unnecessary financial waste. Organizations can overcome these barriers by implementing structured cybersecurity budgeting frameworks, integrating security workforce planning into enterprise risk management strategies, and leveraging security automation tools to optimize cybersecurity operations. Investing in real-time cybersecurity funding, allocation models, predictive security investment analytics, and continuous cybersecurity workforce training programs ensures that organizations dynamically assess and optimize cybersecurity resource allocation based on evolving threats and business priorities. Standardizing cybersecurity investment strategies across departments, subsidiaries, and external business partners ensures that security resources are efficiently utilized, reducing exposure to cyber threats and strengthening enterprise-wide cybersecurity resilience. By embedding cybersecurity resource allocation into enterprise governance strategies, organizations enhance security preparedness, improve regulatory compliance, and ensure sustainable cybersecurity investment planning in an evolving cyber threat landscape. That wraps up today's discussion on framework. Don't stop here. Head over to cyberauthor.me to explore more cybersecurity topics and discover a best-selling book covering NIST and other critical cyber frameworks. Please like, rate, and review this episode on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power.